All right, so looks like maybe go ahead and get started if that's all right with you guys. Is there anybody else critical maybe that we need to wait on? Anything that you got? Julia just signed on.
AJ, I think we can go ahead and get started.
Okay, perfect. All right, well, a couple of things. First, thanks for carving out some time to hop on and learn a little bit more about parking. I had to hop into a hotel lobby here. I'm on the road at sites today. So if you hear background noise, just stop me. I can, pause for a minute and or repeat if I have to, if it gets a little noisy in the background on us. But again, my name's AJ Jenkins. Bob Goldwitzer with Park Plus pulled this together for everybody to just really shed some more light on what's developing in our industry, shed some light on the solutions we offer and the value adds, and also let you know what's happening in your region, which is we're starting to see some acceleration, finally starting to see some acceleration, particularly in the DC market. DC, for whatever reason, was slow to adopt. I don't know if I could really put my finger on why. One, it's a little difficult with like First Source, which is a part of DOES, DOEES, that has a fingerprint on our industry, and particularly with construction there, which means we have to have a certain percentage of local labor. And, we're such a niche industry, we don't hire local labor. So that's had a little bit of influence, not so much as prevailing wages and just the complexities. And I think the pushback, what we saw for the longest time in our industry is, AJ, I don't want to be first to integrate this. So for 4 years, 3 years in particular, I used to hear that in a lot of the new regions that we went in and evangelized and introduced these systems. But we don't really get that pushback anymore, because now we can say, well, especially in our core markets, we can say, well, hop in a car and I'll go show you one 2 miles down the road. And by the way, after we're done with that one, we can go 3 miles down the road and show you another one. So that's happening now in Boston, New York, Miami, LA, San Francisco, Seattle, our larger core markets. I suspect that's going to happen now. We've got several projects in the DC market. One in particular, we'll probably have that erected and done in, I would say, about 120 days or less. So once we get that project vertical, we're going to do an open house is the plan right now. Invite some key accounts and maybe, even like you guys to come by, get firsthand evidence of how the system operates. It's our semi-automated system. So it'll at least give you some insight to one of about 104 different solutions. There's 4 different product lines, but a tremendous amount of solutions we can offer with either morphing or several of these systems and or combining several of these systems. So anyway, AJ Jenkins, National Sales Director. I've been in the industry now for 5 years. I cut my teeth for, 22 years now with scaling OEM, original equipment manufacturers and engineering firms from New York to San Diego to LA, Chicago to Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Qatar. I've been introducing disruptive technologies for 22 years. And, this was somewhat of a disruptive technology. It's taken parking and completely morphing it and introducing automation. So 6 years ago, if you had asked me, would I be in parking, I would have asked you what for, because my concept of parking was garages and surface lots. Now it's mechanical, robotic, automated. You can remote summon your vehicles with a smart app nowadays. So it's way more advanced than it was 6 years ago. And like I said, nowadays we have a tremendous amount of proof of concept.
Any kind of tea. Just, Bethany's would be great.
So real quick, what the PowerPoint's going to do? It's going to do an introduction, just a brief introduction to who we are. So a little bit of a shameless plug of Part Plus, our history and what we've done, also our presence in the industry itself. And then we're going to get into the solutions. And as we get into the solutions, it's going to go from your valet systems, so a non-intelligent system. And as we keep moving through the PowerPoint, it's going to get more intelligent. It's going to get more automated. It's going to shy away from valets as we keep going through the PowerPoint. And it's going to get denser. As we go through the systems, you're going to notice the systems keep compressing footprints more and more and more as we go through each slide. So just real quick, we co-authored, I'll highlight this just to show, we have a strong presence in the market, in the U.S. market in particular. We co-authored Chapter 13. We were selected among our peers, so competitive vendors for that matter, and consultant firms to co-author Chapter 13, which for ULI, which is Urban Land Institute for the Sustainable Parking and Design Management. So I always like to highlight that, and that we are seen as a competent and confident vendor in our industry. We've been pioneering this market in the U.S. and pioneering the industry for 50 years as of last year, so 51 years now. I introduced this to kind of pound our chest a little bit, and that we were the first to introduce semi-automated systems, the first to introduce fully automated systems. We've got the largest, the tallest, the biggest, the most spaces. And that's all of what these PowerPoints are basically introducing is we're the first to be considered for LEED certification due to the fully automated systems having that green fingerprint. Fourth from the bottom, I always like to highlight this one is that if you notice most spaces in the industry, we cycle over 250,000 cars daily. That right now is a little impacted because of COVID, but during normal circumstances, that was our cycles per day. And that is probably a good 4, maybe 5x value considered to anyone else in this market. And there's roughly about 4 or 5 vendors, competitive vendors in our vertical. Where we have a tremendous amount of value is we have a deeper product line. So instead of just having valet systems and or just semi-automated systems and or just fully automated systems, we have them all. So we don't have to steer your design nor your project towards a particular solution because we're a one-hit wonder with only one product. We have multiple products. So if we see that 1, 2, or 3, or however many solutions are the best fit, that's what we can introduce. And then with you collectively, with owner or whoever it is, architect, engineering team, narrow down that focus depending on user experience, costs, which always has impact, density, which always has an impact, and ultimately the dimensional footprint that we're working in. All those are some influencers that'll help drive the design and which solution we need to introduce. Family-owned business. We've got offices. The closest one to you guys is going to be New Jersey, which is the top left. That's where we laid the foundation for the company. It's our manufacturing facility, our warehouse facility, engineering, ops. Same thing in South Florida, where I'm located out of and home base. And then, of course, our Los Angeles that runs the Pacific Northwest and the Southern California market. Satellite offices, Seattle, Bay Area, Boston, Philly. Bob, who made first contact with you guys, is just north of you guys in Philadelphia area. And again, we're starting to see a tremendous amount of activity now in the DC market. Up in Philly, there's several of these systems in place, ours plus competitors. That we're starting to see it trickle into the DC metro area now. So some of the reasons, and this may not be a surprise to you guys. I'm not sure the depth and the exposure you guys have had to our industry and our solutions, but ultimately the number one value add, guys, is we're putting more cars in less space. So we've seen up to 86% space savings, which is that's a real number. And particularly when you go vertical, parking has always been kind of a sprawl. It's it's usually a big box, a garage, or subterranean, above grade podium. If we can consider going vertical, then we can get a tremendous amount of value and space savings. There's a lot of ancillary values, for example, lower utility costs. With our fully automated systems, for example, it's enclosed and cars are not running, so you have zero emissions. And with that means less ventilation. And 60% of enclosed garages and subterranean parking, 60% of your operational overhead is ventilation. So we can dramatically curb that cost going fully automated, and lowering utilities. Lighting, for example, is another one. In some of the parking vaults, with fully automated systems, you don't need lighting. There's no interaction with the car and with the user in a parking vault. So the user never enters the parking vault. You don't need lighting, or you need minimal lighting. So multiple ways that we can dramatically reduce operational overhead and utilities in particular when looking at fully automated systems. And then valets. We have systems that can rid you of valets. We have systems that offer valets. For example, in Miami, it's a very amenity-oriented atmosphere where high-end luxury condos, you always want to have a valet. So we have valet systems. If you wanted to go super luxury and omit the valet, which everybody now is looking at touchless systems in particular, because valets are kind of being omitted from a lot of these communities. We have fully automated systems that doesn't need a valet or interact with a valet. Lower insurance premiums, that's another one. We're seeing on fully automated solutions in particular, we're removing the human element. And it's a little bit of a strong word, and I apologize, but we're removing the idiot factor. So no more door dings, fender benders, violent crime like you find in conventional parking structures, because we've made it very efficient, very user-friendly, pulling into a loading bay, exiting the loading bay, and then the system whisks your car away, either mechanically or robotically. Depreciation is another one. Down at the bottom left, this is considered equipment. It's not considered property that depreciates over 29 years. You can accelerate depreciation over 5 years because it's considered equipment. What we've typically seen is users, or clients rather, be able to accelerate the first year, 30% depreciation. So all that means a much quicker ROI. So just some ancillary values. There's a ton of them. Subterranean parking. Sometimes we can eliminate subterranean parking, for example. And most of the areas that we're installing are major metro areas. Boston, I've seen as much as $115,000 a space for subterranean conventional parking. I've seen high water table have impact. Adjacent properties in Boston is another example where they have wood piles still instead of concrete piles. And when we're digging down in a adjacent property, it's compromising the piles on the adjacent property. So again, a lot of ancillary values. I could go on for 3 hours and some of the hours and user experiences, but it's a case-by-case analysis. And as we maybe take a deeper look into a project with you guys, what we will do is do a first pass design and then offer back in return, here's what we offered you. We offered you this design, and this footprint gave you back maybe a certain amount of square footage that you can now convert into a higher value use. Prime example is I've got a project in South Florida. It was 2 levels below grade of subterranean, 8 levels above grade in a podium slab, so 10 levels of parking. We omitted the 2 levels subterranean, which I don't even know how to put a value to that, of omitting subterranean, of dewatering and excavation and such, sheet piles. I don't know how to do that evaluation, but we were able to omit that. We took the 8 levels above grade, shrank it to 5 levels above grade. So we gave him back 2 whole levels, which was 24 units at a $3 million evaluation each. So in less than a week of designing, we were able to give back to the developer $84 million. That was not accounted for in his pro forma. So, that's an extreme case. It's a very great case study on our part, but those are some of the values and some of the contributions that were given back to the architect developer. You know, architect's all about what are you going to give me back for square footage that I can convert into something else. The developer looks at it through the lenses of how much are you going to save me, how much is this going to cost me, and at the end of the day, does it affect my pro forma? And we definitely have, we check the boxes for both the architect and the developer, and have a tremendous amount of value for both. So again, real quick, we're going to start getting into the systems. And like I mentioned, the systems are going to go from the valet, non-intelligent systems. As we keep moving forward, it's going to keep getting smarter, more denser, and more user-friendly. So this, what's being illustrated, is just a stacker. Push a button, it goes up. Push a button, it goes down. A very non-intelligent system, valet-oriented, because you have to physically, manually remove the lower level car to capture the upper level car. So hence the valet. So you get a one-to-one solution. For every surface space, you get one space above. This is a hydraulic-driven system. The 8 to 9 foot wide units, 10 foot 6 to 14 6 clear height, rated at 6,000 pounds. Like most of our, actually all of our systems are rated at 6,000 pounds. The convenience of this system is pretty much a shelf item. We stock it. So we have it most of the time readily available. Very low price point, $3,500 to $5,000 per space. So in the picture in the bottom with the 6 spaces, you can say 3,500 times 6 to upwards of 5,000 times 6. And economy of scale very much has an impact on our per space or per unit values. The more spaces you do, the lower the incremental per space value is. And the reason for that is it's purely economy of scale. It'll take us as much energies to install, design, and get approved through local AHJs like permitting, planning, zoning. It takes just as much energies to get 20 spaces approved as it would 200 spaces. So that's a case-by-case analysis on price points. Typically this system, we see this in the next few systems. This is illustrating a 3-level. These systems we see indoor and outdoor. They are hydraulic systems, so they are very much value engineered to be installed indoor or outdoor. So it's, again, a case-by-case, project-by-project analysis. Here again, you have to manually remove the lower level car to get the car on level 2 and or level 3. And like on the next one, the 4 level to get to the 4th level. So again, valet oriented. You have to have attendants, or we strongly recommend attendants for these types of solutions. You're pressing a button to go up, pressing a button to go down. Very, very easy to operate, very easy to install. We typically have about a 5 to 6 month lead time on these products because they are, each product is for the 3 and 4 level is engineered site specific. They are seismically rated if needed. We have ASTM steel if spec'd. So something that is in my opinion, a differentiator in the market is the different add-ons that we can offer to our systems, such as seismically rated, ASTM. We can paint, they come galvanized. This system here has a height of 21 to 26 feet for the 3 level, again, hydraulic driven systems. If you notice the property top left, I like to illustrate that. It's actually a 9,350 square foot footprint. We were able to go vertical, 3 levels, capture 132 spaces. So if you do the math, it's 9,350 divided by 132, that's 71 square feet per space. So that gets back to that 86% space savings that I was mentioning earlier. So moving on, and again, if I glaze something over something, if you want more detail on any of the solutions, if maybe you didn't hear me properly, just please stop me, ask a lot of questions. I don't mind at all. This is just showing a 3 level, and if you remember, to capture that car far left, the Chevrolet, that white Chevrolet, you got to remove the Toyota, or to capture rather the Jeep Grand Cherokee on top. You'd have to remove the Chevrolet on bottom, lower, remove the white Toyota, lower, capture the Jeep Grand Cherokee. So again, valet oriented. showing skin cladding roof. You can have our superstructure, our steel elements double as your superstructure and simply hang, secure, weld, pin, anchor to our superstructure, some type of skin cladding roof. What we're finding in some municipalities, like in Boston and Miami, they don't want to see a structural steel skeleton sitting out in the community. So they're making a skin clad roof these in some areas. It just depends on the local AHJs. 4-level, that we did this for Volkswagen up in Canada. So again, the 2, 3, 4-level, all hydraulic driven systems, all valet oriented. Here, this is a really, I would say, a new product line in the past 3 years to the U.S. market. It's been around for 8 years, but it really captured our target audience about 4 years ago and has accelerated this past year in particular. So top left, what you're seeing is a 4-post solution. Prior to this, the 3 and 4 level, if you remember, and if you can see my cursor, you had a vertical element at each and every bay. Here we're clear spanning. So now that, again, the human element or the idiot factor is removed and that you're not backing in or pulling in to structural elements to every bay. Whoops, go back, sorry. So it does give a little bit of ease of operation. So 4 posts on the top left illustration. The bottom illustration, what you're actually looking at there are 3 spaces. The section view right in the PowerPoint, that's actually 3 spaces over the drive aisle. So now what was once useless or wasted space over the drive aisle, you can have a lofted space suspended from the slab above, or even do it as a 4-post in the over the drive aisle and integrate spaces over the drive aisle. You can do 2, maybe even 3 spaces. It just depends on the width of the drive aisle. So now you're talking about every 20 feet, getting an additional 2 to 3 cars in the drive aisle. So right shows one section view, and then the left illustration is another section view looking at a different angle. So it's suspended from the slab above. With this illustration, you could actually, and again, if you can see my cursor, you could actually omit these vertical legs. We could have we could tie our horizontal primary member into your superstructure. So if we're well out ahead of the design, we could take that horizontal member, tie into a beam pocket, an embed, some type of moment-to-moment connection in your vertical columns, shear walls, cores, what have interior foundation walls, and omit any vertical legs, whether it be running to the embeds above or even anchoring to the slab below. And all you have now is a horizontal primary member. So it gives a little bit of a sleeker, more aesthetically pleasing look by omitting those verticals. So 3 different ways we can install that system. What you're looking at here is plan view. So you guys are probably pretty familiar with this, looking at a conventional parking structure, plan view. Your columns are typically every 3 spaces. This was a -3, so this was 3 levels below grade. We were able to get 446 spaces that was once allocated for 3 levels below grade, get it into 1. We designed all this and compressed it into 1 level. So everything you see in this teal green far left, if you can see my cursor, is a triple. Everything in the yellowish, greenish color is a double. And then what you see to help, what we did to build the density, what you see in the purple is actually your drive aisle. So those are lofted spaces over the drive aisle. So we got 446 spaces, omitted 2 levels of subterranean parking, which again, I'm not even sure how to put a value on that, but at the end of the day, we omitted or reduced excavation by 9.5 feet. And that was our target, was to rid the developer of excavation because it was wickedly cost prohibitive. I kind of glazed through this one. I see this really with single family homes, high-end luxury homes, and then sometimes in your townhome communities where you have a single bay and maybe even a single garage. This gives you the luxury to have a surface space and then a -1 or even a -2 space below grade. So this is called our MS200 for 2 spaces, 1 on grade, 1 in the pit. MS300 for 1 on grade and 2 in the pits. So here we're moving into our lift slide. So this is our semi-automated solution. Now we're moving away from valets. Do not need valets in attendance with this solution. You have the ability as a user to remote summon your own vehicle, capture your own vehicle. So it gives the user independent access, in other words. So just real quick, looking at section view, this shows a +4, so 4 levels above grade and a -1. You don't have to do the -1, but the -1 is in a pit. So this is a 5-level solution altogether. To capture the vehicle in the left illustration that's circled, everything below it is going to traverse. It's going to traverse 1 space left, 1 space right, depending on where the blank space is. So in that left illustration, notice we left spaces blank on 3, 2, and 1, on ground rather. We do that intentionally to give the system the capability to mechanically maneuver. It's almost like Tetris or that game as a kid when you used to move the little board pieces in a game and try to get the board piece above it by manipulating the pieces below it. I'm maybe showing my age there, but but to capture the spaces above, all that's happening below are the spaces are traversing 1 space left, 1 space right. It is not doing a Ferris wheel. So you have to have access to every single bay on ground level. So here, this is a 5-bay wide module. So each bay you have to have access to either deposit your car and or capture your vehicle. This is going to show a video. If anything springs to mind, jump in, guys. This is going to really illustrate the user ability or the user friendliness of the system. Clear height. This system you can design anywhere from 2 to 15 levels. You can estimate 6 feet per level. So what you're looking at is a 2-level system. This would be in 12-foot clear. You would get a sedan on bottom. You'd get SUV on bottom, sedan on top. If you gave us 14.2, you get SUV, SUV on second, SUV on ground. And notice we're illustrating our modules. Every 3 bays, you have a vertical element. The reason we show 3 bays having vertical elements is, which this may resonate with you guys, is superstructures, your conventional footprint, your vertical elements are every 3 bays, 26 to 28 feet. So hence the reason we show vertical elements 26 to 28 feet. Sorry, it's something that stopped. So in short, 2 levels, 12 feet, 18 feet, 3 levels, 24 feet, 4 levels, and so on. So that's a good estimate or way to budget. If you've got footprint you're looking at and clear heights you're looking at, that's a good way to just do the quick math and figure out how many spaces or how many levels you can get in a certain clear height. And we strongly suggest, if you're weighing a project or just don't have a solution, or you're trying to put as many spaces as you can in a parking vault and having challenges, we strongly encourage you to utilize us and our resources, our depth, and our history of experience. Send it to us, and we'll do a free first pass design and send you back what we were able to capture. 9 out of every 10 projects we look at, we have value. There's a one-off every now and again where we just don't have a fit, but it's very rare. We have seen where we're lowering overall build cost, we're lowering structure height or omitting subterranean parking, giving back layers of parking to convert into some other higher value use. So there's a tremendous amount of, like I mentioned at the very beginning of the PowerPoint, a lot of ancillary values. This is illustrating a tandem. So what it is it's 2 modules back to back, nose to tail. This is 3 levels. It's 6 bays wide, and now you're looking at a 6 bay wide, 4 high, 1 deep. This would be roughly 24 foot to 26 foot above grade. And then the pit, you're anywhere from 6'10" in the pit depth to upwards of 8'2" depth in the pit. It depends on whether we're accommodating compact sedan or SUV vehicles. The user friendliness with this is from 150 feet away, you press a key fob. That's going to remote summon the module to activate. So by the time you drive that 150 feet, the system is already maneuvered and either brought your car down to ground level or up to ground level from the pit where you can capture your vehicle, and or brought your pallet down or up to ground level where you can park and deposit your vehicle. So you do have the ability for remote summoning. You can have, there's a kiosk station, a user interface on each module where you can simply enter a code and or wave your key fob. And again, it'll activate the system. Any questions thus far? So again, this is the semi-automated non-valet system. So what we're looking at here is you're looking at plan view. Everything in the bold black is a mechanical parking space. It was once a conventional parking space. Now it's a mechanical parking space. So in other words, being familiar with parking design, you're not looking at anything. We're not designing anything different in your footprint other than what you would typically have in your conventional footprint. The orange arrows are your drop aisles. So every 20, 24 foot, you have 20 to 24 feet, you have a drive aisle where the user is navigating their vehicle either east to west in plan or north to south in plan here, and then parking their car on a semi-automated lift slide puzzle system on either side of the drive aisle. So again, we can design and install these anywhere from 2 to 15 levels. 2-level system, 12 feet to 14 and a half. 3-level system, 18 to 21 and a half. A +5, -2, this would be 30 to 33 feet in clear height, and anywhere from, for a -2, 14.2 to 16.8 in the pit. EV capabilities. We do have the luxury of having EV. So if you got Teslas, which are very prominent, and seeing the marketplace, which we are seeing on a national scale, an acceleration of EV spaces, and not only just conventional, but also with our systems due to local codes and ordinances, we do have the ability to integrate EV charge stations in our modules. And that's for every single one of our systems for that matter. For every system we have and every solution we have, we can integrate EV stations. We have 2 different packages of EV. One is individual charge stations for each space. So if you have 20 spaces, 20 stations. We also have the luxury of doing what's called load balancing. So in the scenario I just offered, you had 20 stations. That means you have 20 60 amp meters feeding those 20 charge stations. Load balancing, we're taking those 20, shrinking it down to 5 charge stations, 5 meters, and feeding 4 cars for every cyber switch load balancing station is feeding a 60 amp service to 4 vehicles. So it's distributing load. Some value add there is users can track their usage via an app. You can prepay. For example, if I wanted to pay $20 for a charge, I can pay $20 for a charge, and it's only going to charge my vehicle 20. And if it's load balancing, it just trickle charges mine 20 and then moves on to the next 3 vehicles in the line. So a lot of different value add there. The number one, in my opinion, is it can bill the user pro rata, which means it's taking off the charge, that kilowatt per hour charge, off the facility, and billing that user for their usage for their vehicle. This is showing in plan and section the charge station, that number 1, number 2 that you see here at my cursor. That's the actual charge station. So the user pulls in, deposits their car, exits their vehicle, plugs their J1775 cord into the pallet. Once the pallet goes back to its nesting space, it's going to start charging. This is a project where we're almost completed in South Florida. It's a standalone parking structure, semi-automated skin cladding. What's really cool with this project is they illustrate PV on the roof, half of the roof. They're now installing PV on the entire roof. So it's taking that particular parking structure completely off the grid. And it's also battery storage for those kilowatt, it's storing kilowatt in the battery storage and feeding the restaurant beside it. So very forward-thinking property. This is serving a community, kind of a mixed-use community, retail, restaurants, office, and multifamily. This property, we're going vertical in 2021. This has got a building envelope. So if you notice on the left and the right of the tower, the superstructure there in the center, this is just they built an envelope around our 2-level system. It was cost prohibitive to dig subterranean. This is in the Sarasota Springs area, high water table. In the Sarasota market in South Florida, high water table, cost prohibitive to dig down. So we were able to do a +2 system on grade. Another project in South Florida, 7-level system we just did. I illustrate this mainly because it is a skin cladding roof, but notice the skin is very porous and it's a kind of got a green fingerprint to it. So again, we've outlined the valet systems, which are your 2, 3, 4-level stackers and your lofted space over the drive aisle. We moved into the non-valet systems, which are semi-automated. Now we're moving into fully automated solutions, which is really, we're seeing a dramatic push in the U.S. The scales are tipping in the direction of fully automated systems because of the amount of density that we can capture with our rack and rail and AGV systems. I'm outlining here on this particular slide that we've installed roughly half of all U.S. fully automated solutions. And again, the achievements down below, it's kind of pounding our chest a little bit in that we were the first, the largest. We've got the tallest at 26 levels, which in 26 levels, we can go from ground to level 26 in 60 seconds. And we can go from 26 to ground in 60 seconds. It is one of the fastest solutions globally. It is absolutely the tallest system globally. Autonomous vehicle control. We have a project in California. It is by far 10, 12 years ahead of the global market, where now you pull into a parking vault, and as a user, you deposit your car, you walk away. The car is now autonomously controlled and navigated into our fully automated solution. Then there's a handshake between the two technologies, the autonomous vehicle control and our fully automated system like you see here. And then it deposits, we deposit the car with our fully automated system anywhere in the parking vault. So very high-end luxury, touchless in particular because of COVID, which everybody seems to be on a drive to eliminate valets and go more touchless. And again, it's autonomous vehicle control, guys. That's 10 years ahead of the market. So we're very proud. That's going to roll out late 2021. We expect a mid-2022 completion and turnover of that project. This is AGV. AGV means automated guided vehicle. This is a robotic solution. So what you're seeing is a robotic AGV sled that you see highlighted there with the blue LEDs. It picks up a tray, which in return picks up your vehicle, and then it'll manipulate your vehicle and tray anywhere on the dance floor it wants to. So it's very omnidirectional. It can move in any direction, it traverse in any direction, spin in any type of radius it wants to, and maneuver itself into tight spots or around superstructure elements, for example. Notice here we're within inches, tolerances within superstructure elements and even adjacent vehicles. So we're literally putting cars side by side and on top of one another with this type of solution. We're getting down to as little as 160 to 180 square feet per space. To put that in perspective, conventional above grade parking is 350 square feet per space. Below grade conventional parking is 450 square feet per space. So as a reminder, we're 160 to 180 square feet per space. That's 1/2 to 2/3 the footprint that you find with conventional. So hence the value add and hence the acceleration that we're seeing with this product in the U.S. market. This is another project. The one you just saw, the AGV, was in South Florida. This is in New York. This is Zaha Hadid's building on 28th Street. We've got several projects with Zaha Hadid properties. And so what you're doing as a user is you're pulling into a loading bay with these solutions. You're getting out of your vehicle, taking your keys, locking your vehicle, exit the loading bay. Bay door shuts behind you. You walk and do what you need to do for the rest of the day, whether it be going to retail, mixed use, restaurant, or even to your unit. And your car is being whisked away at the same time. So we can actually, if you think about it, we can manage a higher volume of throughput. So now instead of winding up or winding down this labyrinth of a garage, you're pulling into a loading bay. 10 seconds later, you're done. Now your car is being whisked away and parked into the parking vault. What you're looking at now is we've actually converted our trays into storage pods. So again, Zaha Hadid's project, where if you want to retrieve a storage pod where you have a large closet, you have the luxury to remote summon the storage pod, capture or deposit any number of items from your storage pod. So again, this is a very omnidirectional type of product. If you've got odd footprints, if you're trying to capture a wicked amount of density, more than typical, this is a great solution for that. So I show this. This is also that from that same video. I like to show this for a few reasons. One, this is not your non-typical OEM vehicle or original equipment manufacturer. It's a Jeep, huge tires, higher vehicle. It's not typical. So we're able to accommodate non-OEM vehicles by having height, length, and width sensors in the loading bay. So as a user, when you pull into the loading bay, your car is being identified. Can it fit into the system? And it's as simple as a red light, green light. Green light, you're a go, you fit. Red light, you don't fit. So very user-friendly. We don't make it complicated because it is a little bit different than your traditional parking methods. We've taken that in consideration, integrated a lot of user packages to make it stupid easy, to make it, in short, make it stupid easy and it'll work. So we don't have pushback. We don't have users saying, I don't understand. So again, we've made it very, very user-friendly. Also, I like to show this in that we have laneways. Notice this is an 8-foot laneway, not a 20 to 24-foot wide drive aisle. The other is, if you can see my cursor here, this is the storage pod. So 3 different values there. A non-typical OEM vehicle, 8-foot laneway, storage pods. This is that project in South Florida. So this is just, I just like to show this to show the amount of density we're able to create. Notice you're 3 deep, 4 deep, 5 deep in some areas. We can have multiple AGVs maneuvering on the dance floor at once. In other words, I could have 15 AGVs manipulating 15 cars at a time, while the 2 loading bays that you see here highlighted in bold are capturing and or depositing vehicles. So the more throughput, the more AGVs we integrate. The less throughput, the less AGVs. Very simple. We do the analysis and user case study to figure out what the right ratio of loading bays and AGV units are. So that's something we typically do after our first pass design, just to ascertain viability. This is a project in San Francisco. What I'm showing outlined in the blue on the left is what we gave back to the developer, which was once allocated for parking down below. So here, if you can see my cursor, you're entering the property east in plan, traveling west in plan. In the red is what is a ramp lowering into the cellar level. So notice all the parking, traditional parking here outside of the blue. This is all once conventional parking. The red is your helix ramp going down into the parking vault. We were able to omit the parking ramp, put all the parking in this one area, 2 different levels. It was 3 levels with conventional. We made it 2 and gave back that area outlined, area outlined here in blue. We gave back 38,000 square feet, which he turned into retail on ground, amenities in the cellar, and a gym, which is what he was driving. So we met the target. 38,000 square feet translated into $12,375 for our solution, which cost $5.5 million. So we were able to capture what, roughly $7 million in less than a week that we were able to give back to the developer. We omitted 1 whole level of excavation, and again, I don't even know how to put a value on that. So we gave back $12.3 million. Well, the delta between 12.375 and our $5.5 million, so roughly $7 million plus omitting the excavation. So maybe $10 million is what we gave back in just 1 week of design efforts. Here we're showing 3 deep in tandem, north and south in plan. So it's just showing you a couple of different design iterations that we can offer. Here we're showing far and west in plan. We're showing north to south configuration, while the rest of the parking vault east to west. So we do have the luxury being a very omnidirectional system and being able to remote maneuver in between all of these superstructure elements to capture vehicles. So we can design a wicked amount or a tremendous amount of density with this particular solution. EV capabilities, like I mentioned earlier, we do have the luxury for EV with every single system. Now we're gonna, and I know we're kind of pressed for time, now we're running into our rack and rail, also a fully automated solution. That's the building, a pencil building. Is a 9,000 square foot footprint. They needed to capture 208 spaces in 9,000 square foot footprint. This is on the coast in Miami, in oh gosh, it's just north of Miami Beach. I'll think of the area, Aventura. And we were able to go vertical 26 levels, 4 spaces on either side of the elevator core. So here you notice we're going straight vertical in an elevator core. We have 2 pallets like you see there going vertical. We have 2 in the retrieval aisle that are going vertical and or capturing vehicles that are traversing on each level. Like, once again, as a reminder, there's 4 spaces on either side. And if you remember me mentioning earlier, we can go from ground to 26, level 26 in 60 seconds, and from level 26 to ground in 60 seconds. Super efficient, very fast system. The user has the ability to remote summon their car from a key fob like you see here, and or a smart app. So if you're sitting in your unit, you can remote summon your vehicle, and on the smart app, it starts counting down 42, 41, 40, 39. You know you've got 39 seconds to capture your vehicle. So a very intelligent system. The AGV, more robotic. This is a little bit more mechanical. Both solutions have its place. It's horses for courses. So depending on the dimensional footprint we're working with, depending on the user experience, depending on the amount of density we're trying to design, each solution has its own appropriate fit. If you got a big square, a big rectangle, which you typically find with parking structures, this is the right solution. Very economical, great price point. And what you got to weigh, or what we help weigh with you guys, is when we're looking at automated systems, and let's say we compress the footprint, let's be conservative and say we've compressed it to half. Well, our system may be $30, $40, $45,000 per space, but what we look at, what did we give you back, or what did we omit, or what did you gain by reducing that parking footprint, and what is the delta between our cost and what we gave you back? 9 times out of 10, it always pencils out in the client's favor. So it's something we help do an evaluation on with each of our clients, whether it be the architect or developer. So what you're looking at here, the illustration on the left, you're looking from ground straight up the elevator shaft. And then this is on the far right, is just a section view, the 2 loading bays on either side of the property, lifted vertical, traverse into the center core, and then go vertical with for 26 levels. That particular project, it was 26 levels, but it was an exoskeleton to the superstructure. So it stands out in front of the condo units, in other words. Here, this is a project we finished in Boston. I love this one in that we were able to shrink the parking footprint to 168 square feet per space, if you notice right there in the center of the page. So what you have here are 3 spaces north, 2 spaces south, traversing pallet left in plan, traversing pallet right in plan that are either depositing or capturing vehicles. So these cars are all traversing in the aisle. Here's the project in LA that I was mentioning, is autonomous vehicle control. So north in plan at grid line 5, you're actually entering into the parking vault there. So if you can see my cursor, you're entering the parking vault in the cellar level at grid line 5, traveling west in plan, turning perpendicular, traveling south in plan, turning again, traveling east in plan. And then the user deposits their car here in any number of these queuing spaces. They get out, they walk to retail above, which is everything in teal blue. And then everything in the dark green is for resi. So this has got a dual purpose mixed use component, in the green, all multifamily. And in the teal green or the teal blue is mixed use restaurant, theater, and retail. So autonomous vehicle control takes over the vehicle, pulls it into any number one of these 9 loading bays. And from there, in the loading bay, there's a handshake between technologies. Autonomous vehicle control releases, our system activates, and then deposits the car in the parking vault like you see here. This is going to be 4 levels of conventional parking below grade. We were able to capture it in 2. So you can see here, just by looking at the plan view, the tremendous amount of density we're able to design with these systems. So again, we're putting cars literally side by side within inches of one another. This is illustrating the clear heights. I think we're roughly 17 foot in the ground, 17 feet in the ground rather, with this particular project. This is showing skin cladding roof. You could do standalone structures. And to bring it to a close, we do have the availability to CCTV, which you can find these in most of our 3 corporate offices. CCTV capabilities where we can get a live feed into your property so that we can mitigate any user experience problems. We also have the ability in most of our major metropolitan areas to actually look on our iPhone or even on our laptop and see the system in operation. So we can remote in to your property and self-diagnose from 2,000 miles or 200 miles or even 2 miles away or 200 feet away. So we do have the luxury to be able to mitigate very quickly if there's any impacts to the efficiencies of the system, which segues me into there's a tremendous amount of redundancy built in value engineered in these systems. There are backups on backups. So we are running a very high uptime when looking at our systems, the highest in the industry of uptime versus downtime. Most of the downtime we see is because of user experience or user error. But again, we have the capabilities to mitigate that with CCTV, remote capabilities from our phones or laptops to see the system maneuverability. And it also can, like the AGV, it's very AI, artificial intelligence. it can identify users that are using their vehicles every day and capturing their vehicles every day versus those that capture their vehicles on weekends. It's going to identify the everyday user and deposit that user closest to the loading bay. It's going to identify a weekend user and deposit them in the rear of the parking vault. So it's very much an intelligent system, something that we get fed data on a daily basis, and we're more than willing to share that data with the end user, or I'm sorry, the client or the property manager for that matter. And it'll show uptime, downtime. It'll show the number of users capturing vehicles and how many times they're capturing their vehicles in a week or a day or a month. So again, services that you don't typically find with other vendors and absolutely a differentiator in the marketplace. With that said, that's as much as I can think of. I know we're kind of coming to a close on our time. If you got any questions, please jump in. Anybody, did I glaze over something? Have I still got everybody's attention? Anything that that didn't resonate that I need to highlight? Okay, Bob, you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, all right. I guess somebody's got any questions. Yeah.
I had one quick question. I sorry I missed the beginning of it. But
Sure.
On the project in Aventura, which seems like a pretty extreme one,
Yes.
is there an inside-outside cost to say like extreme? It's $50 for $50,000 a space, or $60,000
Right.
a space.
Right. Yeah, it's it's economy. I mentioned earlier, it's economy of scale. You know, if we did 20 spaces, it's honestly, you know, full disclosure, it's a high value because it's only 20 spaces, and it takes us so many resources internally and so much effort to do 20 spaces as much as it does 200 spaces. But I've seen pricing anywhere from $24,000 a space for these systems. I've seen it as much as $80,000 per space. But the $80,000 is for like a 6-space project. You know, I've seen $24,000 a space for 600 plus spaces. So it's a little bit of a moving target, and I apologize, but it is a case by case analysis. But you know, I would use for you guys for budgeting, I would use a $30,000 to a $40,000 evaluation for most of your high volume type parking projects, 200 to 300 plus spaces. If you get down into 70, 80, or less than 100 spaces, I would creep that up to maybe around 40 to 60 per space, depending on the design, depending on whether this is the 2021 contract, a 2022 contract, 2023 contract, and when it builds. You know, if this builds in 2023, well, we got to bring out our crystal ball and figure out where our pricing is going to be in 2023. So a couple of different influencers, and also where we're building. Sometimes with local AHJs, we get a tremendous amount of processes, or we get engaged in a tremendous amount of processes that can sometimes take us a year to get approvals. So we have to build that cost and bake it into our contract value to cover internal resources. So, and it depends on whether the system has been introduced in that particular market. In Boston, at the very beginning, it would take us 6, 7, 8 months to get through the processes with local AHJs. Now it takes us a month, but that's because they've seen the systems now. They understand the remote capabilities, user experiences, the fail and fall safes, and the amount of redundancy built into the system. So I would say that it very much has the region we're designing and building in has an influence on some of the pricing models.
And a lot of the work that we do is residential. Generally,
yes, I noticed that.
Yeah, generally not a condominium, but more like just market rate housing. And yeah, we do work in some places that this comes up, usually more urban.
Right.
When we do a residential project, and when you do residential projects, do you get pushback from the the architect solves the problem with the parking, but the owner needs to be the one to buy it. When they get pushback from their leasing people, it's like, well, how do I know that I'm going to have enough parking for other types of parkers, like people that aren't going to accept their car going in these places? You have ways to make sure that there are convenient surface spaces as part of your layout?
We do. So if you've got an unusual vehicle, we can park, to give you some insight, we can park Range Rover Sports, Jeep Grand Cherokees, Ford Explorers, Tahoes, Suburbans, even in these systems. What we can't park, Hummers, dualies, crew cab trucks. Not to say we can't design, engineer it, but by the time you do the pay us for the customization to fit those type vehicles, it doesn't usually pencil out as well. Now, with that said, we did design a solution in Texas. Texas, everybody drives a truck and SUV. So it penciled out for that particular property because they didn't have another solution. That property could not have been gone vertical without our system. So we do recommend leaving a few conventional spaces at grade or wherever it is, just for that unknown vehicle. Dualies, you know, I don't ever see us being able to accommodate dualies. But with that said, we've designed, engineered our systems to park Amazon vans, ADA vans. These the fully automated systems, these are ADA compliant. So if we have to design one of our loading bays to be ADA compliant, we have that capability, and it'll deposit an ADA type of vehicle in the parking vault. We just carve out a certain section or a certain number of spaces for ADA type of vehicles, whether they be taller, longer, and wider.
So that was leading to a question I had, which was about the accessibility with trays, because I know historically your competitors would say that the trays and the side rails would not meet code or tripping codes in some jurisdictions. And so clearly the AGV will do that, and the fully automated systems. So when you're doing a tray system, are you typically carving out accessible spaces in the front of the garage for those uses, and then the non-accessible spaces are in the rack?
Yes, so that is this solution here, the semi-automated. So with the semi-automated solution, you're right. The tray has a perimeter edge, a 5-inch perimeter edge. Let's see if I can get it to start here. So yes, with this solution, we always suggest having a conventional ADA space, or spaces for that matter. We could design this to be ADA compliant, but again, you don't really want to. One, it stretches the system, length, width, and height. And when you do that to the entire module. So in that one 3-space wide module, that's one module. The other 3-space wide module is a different module. So if I made that one space ADA compliant, it impacts that entire module. And sometimes it's not convenient due to clear heights and dimensional constraints. So we always, for this solution, always suggest leave a few ADA spaces.
So the way you would do it in the rack is you would have an extra wide tray basically that has the 3-foot whatever aisle next to the car in the tray. You have a big tray.
No, you don't have to with this solution. We do have the capability to design this from 7.5 to 9.5 feet wide. So as the user, they get out. Depending on, it's just like a conventional surface space. If you think about it, when you put two Tahoes beside one another, you can't swing your door like you typically can with another smaller vehicle beside you. It's no different here. You got to be mindful of the door swing because you got another large vehicle beside you. The space is the same thing as your conventional space. Now, if you've got two compacts, you have door swing and you have an aisle that you can walk on the tray. So it depends on the vehicle we're discussing. Tahoe, you're a little tight. If you're parking a Jaguar XJ7, it's a slender vehicle, so you have room. But there again, we can design it 7.5 feet wide to 9.5 feet wide. Most vehicles are less than 6, or right around 6'2" or less wide.
Okay, and then a separate question on the AGV system. If we had a 300 car facility on a level or two, what do you think? Where's the AGV coming in range wise for a larger facility for just so we can get a better sense? Do you have an estimate on that yet?
Yeah, about that same price point. You're going to be somewhere between, how many spaces did you say? 300? So you'll be somewhere 30 to 40, somewhere in there. And again, I hate to I have a $10,000 delta between the two, but the reason I say it is if it's a 2021 contract design, 2020, early 2022 build, you're going to probably be 30, 35. If it's, projected out and you're not even through entitlements, permitting, it's going to be a 2023 build. I got to lean on the higher side of that value because I don't know where pricing is going to be at that time. But we can always do pricing based upon today with maybe a 3 to 5% escalator every year that it's not built. So you could be 30. I've seen as low as 24,000 a space to upwards for typical design. Typical footprints. 24 to 40 is typical. When you get down into 10, 20, 30, 40 spaces, it absolutely creeps up in value. But again, what we have to look at is what did we give back or what did we omit? To give you a prime example, a project in Boston, it was 4 levels, very slender building. I think the footprint was only 35 foot wide. So they had to get 4 levels of parking. It was impossible. How are you going to get a parking, row of parking and then a ramp in 35 seats? So we were able to pull into a loading bay and go down into the cellar 4 levels. So we were able to capture 32 spaces in 4 levels below grade and 35 foot width. So again, we were able to give back. We were able to, for that project, we were able to give them a project that was dead. Couldn't get entitled, couldn't get funded, couldn't get permitted because it couldn't meet the parking code requirement. And it made it a go project. And that turned into be a $165 million project. The one that was 26 levels, that's a $386 million project that was dead in the water. Could not do anything because it was a postage stamp lot. So our system made happen a $386 million project. Again, that's a tremendous case study, not the stereotypical, but it is one in our portfolio we're super proud of because it had a tremendous amount of value. We ended up, that was with, I think that was with JLL, Jones Lang LaSalle, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and a developer out of South America. We're doing projects, related groups. I'm going to drop a couple of names for name recognition. We have a national account with the Related Group. Happy to give you any contacts you want there. They're going to have nothing but praises with Park Plus. Any project nationally that Related does, we're going to be on it. 2 times in the now we have bid for that work. The first time we bid with competitive vendors. The second time, they didn't even put it out for bid. They just asked us to restructure our pricing. We restructured our pricing in their favor, gave it back to them, and now we're under contract for another 4 or 5 years. Skanska, Turner, Architectonic, who else? I mentioned earlier, Zaha Hadid. Several major players in the marketplace that we're working with. We're working with, I don't know where it's going to go, JBL, also with, Tishman Spire. I don't know where those projects are going to go right now, but we're working with those guys. Somebody in the DC market is going to be the first to do fully automated. And from our perspective, whoever that first person is, well, we're looking at about, I would defer to Bob, but I think we're looking at about 6 or 7 fully automated projects between Philly and DC. In DC in particular, whoever that first person is going to get first person pricing. And we're going to make sure that we get it contracted, shepherd the processes through local AHJs, and get it contracted, get it approved, and get it going vertical. I've always said, I've been in this industry 5 years, I think DC is one of the most target-rich environments because everything in DC is subterranean. Check box, check box, check box for our industry. We have so much value when you're looking at subterranean parking. And what I see in DC, unlike some of the other major metro areas, where everything's on a grid. All your superstructures are right in parallel, right down a grid. In DC, it's not typically a grid pattern. You've got superstructure elements all over the place. Now, in the suburbs or in the ancillary markets, may not be the case. But in DC Metro, it's just a wicked mess of superstructure, vertical elements, cores, shear walls. It's a labyrinth of a garage. So again, that's where we have value.
Jeremy Sharp had a question. I don't know if you're looking at the chat, but I have a related question.
Oh, sorry.
He was asking about how do you deal with power outages? I assume there's battery backups on even just the skateboard that's rolling around on itself. But
yeah, so those are. Yeah, I'm glad you asked. That's one of the things I sometimes glaze over. Those are battery operated. They do know when to, again, artificial intelligence. They do know when to go back and charge. And we can have multiple charge points, charge stations throughout the footprint. But if you do have an outage, you can run these off a generator. If you wanted to tie into a generator, you can.
I was imagining doing a meme for you guys of, there's the cat on the Roomba memes. I think you need to get a lion on one of your skateboards.
Exactly right.
A related question is, okay, a lot of our work is in DC area and Mid-Atlantic. What happens when something breaks? I mean, is the maintenance something that is going to be easy for our clients to get?
Yes. Our corporate, if you may have missed earlier, our corporate is right in New Jersey, Fairview, New Jersey. So it's not an arm's reach to you, but it's within reasonable reach. But what we do, again, we guarantee a 1 hour response time. So if there's something that needs to be addressed, 1 hour response time or less to follow up, we can be on site in less than 4 hours. And that's in our contract and agreement. Now, if you needed something that was even more, we do have a resource in Philadelphia. So what, hour and a half or so drive from Philadelphia to the DC market. Now, as we densify markets, which is exactly what's happening in Boston, exactly what's happening in Seattle and San Francisco, as we densify the market, and we see more resources are required in those markets, we have brick and mortar offices and we have resources in each of those markets. So that's what's happening in Boston right now. We've got a project starting every single month for the next 14 months, and 3 in June, 3 in July that are starting in those months. So it warrants us having brick and mortar office and tech in that market. If that starts happening in DC, we'll do the exact same business model that we've done in every other major metro area. And if you remember, we do have the capabilities of having CCTV, so we can see in live time what's happening with that community or that property in the parking vault or the loading bay. We have multiple CCTV cameras. The other is straight from our iPhone and from our laptop. We can see the system moving. We can even remote manipulate it if we are allowed to by the local AHJ. So in Boston, we cannot remote into the system. We cannot remote manipulate it. That won't allow us to do it. In every other region, we can. So we can go straight to our iPhone and say, I want to summon space 201. I'll summon space 201. I'll manage it to bring it to the loading bay, load the car, and I'll manage to put 201 back into its nesting space. So we do have that capability. All right, anything else? anybody can think of? It's a lot. It's a lot to digest. I've done this for 3 hours. So, I try to compress the finer points, the points that resonate, but there's so much more here, guys. And I would strongly encourage, if you're just looking at something, it's like, we don't know what to do. How are we going to get to that parking footprint? Or this is taking up way too much square footage. We need a solution. Please send it to us. We have a fix. And we may have several different solutions we can introduce. There's maybe 1 out of every 10 projects where we just don't have a fix. It is very rare nowadays where it doesn't pencil out in your favor, and very rare where we don't have a solution that works. We've got 3 projects in fully automated projects on the horizon in Philadelphia that, again, if they didn't do our system, there is no way they could have met their parking count, which means no way they could have gone vertical with that solution. One's a retrofit, one's new construction, and the third is a retrofit. It was impossible. They just couldn't do it. We were very creative with our design. We've got a suspended system that's a structural steel system that runs through the core, not through the core, but through the superstructure and above the slabs for the retrofit. Nobody else in this industry, and I feel very confident in saying this, nobody else in this industry could design and implement that design, that particular solution. So that's where we have a lot of depth. We're 150 plus people strong, tremendous amount of resources. We're fully vertically integrated. We do our own design, structural engineering. We are the OEM for our fully automated systems, and most of our other systems are, in other words, we manufacture all of our systems, and we do our own installations. We do our own post-construction follow-up. So by being fully vertically integrated, there's a higher sense of quality control because we're managing all those processes as opposed to allowing on third-party vendors such as installers, which create havoc most of the time, and structural engineering. We have our own architects. We have our own structural engineers. So we are fully vertically integrated and have a tremendous amount of value compared to most competitive companies. And we've done it more than anybody else. So we've streamlined those processes over the past 50 years. And in particular, when this industry really accelerated 6 years ago, we've been able to streamline all those processes and weed out all of the negative impacts from cradle to grave. Okay. Anything else you guys can think of? Anything? If there's something we need to take a deeper look at, just send an email. Bob's going to follow up also with some additional collateral. And if we glazed over something, need to highlight something, need to take all of us, jump on the phone and take a look at something, again, just reach out to us. We'll be happy to do it, guys. So I really appreciate everybody covering out. We ran over a little bit. I really, really thank you for everybody jumping on.
Okay,
right.
Danny, you still there?
Hey, yes, I'm still here.
Oh, good deal. So I think we're wrapping up here.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we have, there was like a couple more comments from the chat.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't see the comments. Go ahead and bring them up. I can't see the comments for some reason.
Yeah, I could read it out loud. It's,
Yeah.
so the first comment is from David Stremble. Curious about the coordination with sprinkler systems and other piping that is frequently going through the garage.
Mm-hmm.
And second question
so,
is, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, let me address that one. So we do coordinate with MEPs. Most local AHJs require one sprinkler head per vehicle. And again, we don't do the sprinkler installation, but we coordinate with the sprinkler subcontractor to designate where heads need to be, trunk lines need to run. And we've got some illustrations, both video and pictures of where to run sprinkler heads. And the second question?
Okay, the second question was curious about the snow and water being brought in on our cars and how that system.
Yep. Yeah, so great question. It depends on which solution, but there is a fix for everyone. So even if rain, water, snow accumulates on the vehicle, falls to the slab, it's simply falling to the slab, and then it's going to obviously melt. But on some properties with the semi-automated systems, when you have a pit, for example, there's a drain in the bottom. Some people put a slight, very, very slight slope for the semi-automated. It has to be less than a 1% slope. You can put in heaters at the parking bay. So as you pull into the into the loading bay, there's a heater that maybe melts the snow and then takes it into the parking vault. So to highlight where we have projects in the Northeast, Boston, where you see a lot of snow, New York, where you see a lot of snow, Madison, Wisconsin, a tremendous amount of snow, San Francisco, always raining, Seattle, always raining. So we haven't had any challenges, and we thought through those design processes and have trays and troughs built into some of the systems to have water run off and make sure the water runs away from the system. So there's a couple of different ways we can mitigate that.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for answering the questions.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that's it from the chat. I don't know if anyone else has questions.
Okay.
Okay. Otherwise, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Absolutely, yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Mhm. Cheers, Mike.